The Sundays, my life, roll the life I own. When Monday is too close for me to care. And the dreams I thought were real, they're now marked beneath my footprints. 10,000 ages behind. Roadside didn't take, I bet them all so long. While Sunday warms my blood, it cools my mind. And the nights can get you down, and things won't stay forgotten. With Sunday too far away. So this is Carriewerloo Station, Outback, South Australia. So this is actually where they made, check it out on Google, the famous Australian movie in the 70s, Sunday Too Far Away with Jack Thompson. So I'm on that property, and believe me, it's a beautiful property. But that movie was also one of the early Australian movies that became famous. So check that one out. Sunday Too Far Away, Jack Thompson. Anyway, right, now before we go any further, let's just talk about what I'm doing here. Now the camera's bleaching the sky out a little bit, which is a bit of a problem, I can see, but we won't worry about it too much. I'll show you an after shot so you can see what's going on. But anyway, as usual, I'm working with palette knives and oil paint, and this is clear prime Belgian linen. And if you've watched my videos before, you'd know that what I do is it looks like raw linen, but I put a clear primer over it, so it's just sealed, and the paint basically won't soak in then. It'll just be like a film and sit on top. Alright, so now what we've got, it's a bit hard to see like I was saying before, but there's a beautiful hill here, and we're about, oh, who knows how many fingers before sunset. Oh, there's only like 3 fingers. And in Australia, that's what you've got to realise. If you put your hand out to arm's length, you can actually tell by looking at the fingers how many minutes to sunset. Each finger is 15 minutes. So if you put it out like this, you've got dang, 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 45 minutes to sunset. And that is not like everywhere in the world. Obviously, if you've got a really low sunlight where the sun only just comes over the horizon and then just pops down again, obviously those minute things are not going to work because it's running across and it's all kind of weird. But with this sunlight, and particularly around now, which is 2 days before summer, it's coming straight up and straight down. So what you've got is basically the sun's running straight down. You can put your fingers out. It's like 15, 30, 45. You can work it out. So yeah, it's about right. Maybe even slightly less. But anyway, that's what I need to get this fleeting moment. Like, there's no point starting too early. Anyway, so what we've got, like I said, the beautiful mountain. But also we've got a beautiful body of water here. Now, what's going on here, there's been a drought in Outback Australia. But recently they've had 5 mils of water. And what happens is when you've actually got a really dry country like this and the rain comes, instead of soaking in, it runs. And so what's going on here is all the water has run. There was no water there a few days ago, but what's happened is 5 mils just pelted down, and all of a sudden, instead of soaking in, the water just ran, and here it is, it's just pulled here. So a couple of days time, that'll evaporate and sink into the soil and be gone. But luckily I found this little posie, so good stuff. Anyway, instead of talking about all that, I should be talking about painting the painting, or actually thinking about painting the painting, because there's not a lot more time left. Okay, so now what's going on here, you can see I've already done a little bit. What I've done is I just wanted to establish in my mind the basic composition. You've always got to have a composition in your head, like a concept of what you want. And so I thought, right, I'm going to lead in with a foreground shadow, and I've got a nice water body here, and I'm going to lead out to a hill in sunset. And so I've got that in my mind, and I've already established the basic undertones. And now what I'll do is work with that and establish what I'm thinking in my head and what I'm seeing. Okay, Now first what I'll do is go for the biggest differences, and obviously the biggest differences, I've already got the darks in, so next minute we're going to go for some of the light sources. And that's another good thing before I go any further. The good thing about painting on raw Belgian linen, instead of having a white canvas, which is like totally the opposite of what you're seeing in the landscape, you've got a neutral tone basically. So with a neutral tone, you're sort of halfway there. You've got a little bit of a block in before you even start. So, excuse the flies. So with that neutral tone, as soon as you put the darks in, and then you've got the neutral tones, you can already start to see what's going on, so you can start to put the lights in. Anyway, right, I'll just clean this knife off. I might actually clean a bit of this palette because I've been fluffing around here from some earlier paintings. I've been away painting for the last few days, so I was actually going to go home tonight, but I found this subject and I thought, well, this is a little ripper, so I thought I might just stay one night longer and just see what I can do here. So I'll just clean the palette and get rid of the old paint from the last paintings. Just get that out of the way so I can work. And hang on, what do we got here? Look at that. Now I'm out of the camera, you can actually see what I'm trying to paint. Look how much more colours in the subject. Just want a bit of paper towel for getting everything ready to go. Okay, so now, right, so what do we got? Shadows. Might thin some of that paint off. Some of those undertones are good to keep thin, and the palette knife's good for that. You can apply paint, but you can also take it away. So I'll just thin it off a little bit because I like the undertones to be quite thin. Then I can apply the paint. Right, biggest differences. Right, what do we got here? Okay, I think I'll start putting that water in. That is, hang on. It's always different. In every painting you've got to work out what you're going to paint. What's really weird, that water there and that sky look completely different. That sky's bleached out. It doesn't actually look like that from what I'm seeing. From what I'm seeing, the water and the sky are not that much different, only a tone or two different, but from what you're seeing, that is just crazy bleached out. Maybe if I stand out of the way, let's have a look, you might see the better colours. Can you see those colours better? By me getting in the way, I'm actually interfering with the whole tonal concept. So, right, bear that in mind. Right, okay, let's go. Let's just put a sky in first. I'm going to work with a bit of burnt sienna and white. Yeah, you can see that, that's good. Burnt sienna and white. Now I'm just going to mix that to a fairly light tone, so there's mostly white and a little bit of burnt sienna. Skies are always a very light tone, not as light as that, but very light in general. I'm just going to put that near the horizon. Now I'm not actually quite seeing that colour yet. I'm not really seeing that colour in there, even though you're definitely not seeing that colour. I'm also not seeing that colour, but in the next, I'd say 15 minutes, I reckon it'll be there. So what I'm trying to do is anticipate what's going to be there. And not always you're correct, but that's all right. You've already got the basic in, and then you can change what you're looking at. So get it in first, what you know, put it in, and then make the adjustments. So let's put this burnt sienna in, so you can see what's going on. Yeah, you can see, that's good. Every painting's different. Every setup I paint is different, so I never know if you can see what I'm doing or not. The camera angle is actually probably the hardest thing to do. Like, seriously, the camera angle is the hardest thing to do. To get the camera right so you can see what I'm looking at, and you can't actually see what I'm looking at, so I'll bug it up again. But to see what I'm painting, to see the colours I'm mixing here, the whole thing is actually probably the hardest part of the game. So anyway, let's keep going. A bit more on the low horizon, we'll just pump in this colour. Now this is just on the bottom of the horizon. We don't want to go too crazy adding that too high. Now that's burnt sienna and white. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go yellow ochre. What do we got here? You can see that? Yep, yellow ochre and white. So now I'm going slightly higher up the painting, and I've gone yellow, ochre and white. Let's just have a look. What do we got? Oh, probably about right. I mean, either way, you could go lighter, you could go darker if you like, but that's probably about what you want for now. As I said, I'm just anticipating, and later on I'll actually put in exactly what I'm seeing. But for now, it's all about the anticipation. So I'm just working with what all the sunsets you've seen in the past, like just working with your knowledge, and then after that, fine tuning. Because it doesn't matter how much you've painted a sunset, every single one is different. So you've always got to, work out what you know, but at the same time work out what's going on tonight, because it's going to be a different thing. And that's why painting in the studio is always a bugger, because you get into too many formulas basically, and working with formulas means you're not actually working with observation, and then your paintings start to look a bit stale and repetitive. So it's best to put your knowledge to work, but also then work with what you're seeing on each particular day. Alright, hang on, I'll drop this in the bin. Okay, so now there is definitely a lot of green coming into the sky, and you go, what, green? Crazy, green. But at sunset, you actually do get a lot of pale green in the sky. So what I'm doing is I mix yellow ochre and cobalt blue, and that gives me a nice kind of subtle green, not too strong. Obviously I've got white in the mix, but it's not too strong. It's just a subtle green. Let's have a look. You see what's going on here. It's kind of like a green, but it's not too full on. Just going to bung a bit of that in around about this level. There you go. Now I'm not over mixing, I'm just applying the paint at the moment, just getting the basic colours in. I'll do the blending later. So I'm just using the one beautiful palette knife, and what we've got here is these palette knives, the ones I like to work with, are really flexible. Like, you've got to have a very flexible knife, and at the same time you need a canvas. If you're going to only work with palette knife, you need a canvas and a flexible knife. And the reason for that is because what goes on here is when the knife is stiff, and just say you're painting on board, for example, which a lot of plein air painters obviously do, that is the preferred thing to do, paint on board. If you're painting on board and you've got a stiff knife, as soon as you're pushing like this, that edge and that stiff board dig in, the next minute you get a cut mark and you lose that softness. But what happens here with the flex of the canvas and the bend of the knife, it allows you to get the flex basically and get rid of that hard edge, so you get a softness that the brush would normally create. So that's just a little tip about only using palette knives and using canvas instead of board. If you're going to try this technique on board, it's going to be a lot harder, I've got to tell you that. You might have to dip into brushes. Okay, let's put a bit of this in. See, what I'm trying to do is now introduce a bit more cobalt blue with less yellow ochre as it goes up. Now what I'm going to do is actually totally get rid of the yellow ochre altogether and just go for cobalt blue and alizarin crimson, one of my favourite colours, as you may have seen before in my videos. Now this blue is going to have more of a red look rather than a green look. And if you look up at sundown, not here for example, this looks shocking. What I'm looking at and what you're seeing is nothing. Unfortunately, I've got to get a better camera set up. This is just not how it should work. But what usually happens in a sundown is the top of the sky will have more of a red blue and as it gets closer to the horizon, it will have more of a green blue. Now, that's just a little bit too blue, so I'm just going. I mean, a little bit too dark and a little bit too red. So I'm going to go for more cobalt blue and a little bit more white to introduce a medium tone, and just putting them in there like that. Then I go more for that red and blue tone, slightly darker again as we go higher. Really pump that colour up in there. And you might say, what are you doing? That's crazy. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix them all together in a minute, so it won't be too bad. Now we just want to get all those beautiful cold tones in first, because there's a lot of warm tones coming on now. I can see them. What I'm going to do is get those cold tones in first. Clean the knife every time. That's always the way to go. Now I'll just pull up. Actually, what I'll do is might mix those like this first. Just bring them together like this. A lot of random little marks. It just sort of tones me. You can go that way. You can go this way. Sometimes going the underside way is a good way to go. And sometimes going the overside way. Just blend it so it's all toned. And what you can do is you can leave that kind of chunky style look, or you can go for a softer look. If you like the chunky style look, just leave it like that. But if you like the softer look, just pull through like that and clean the knife. Pull through. You've got to keep the knife very clean though. Have a clean piece of paper and pull through clean every time. Now I've been doing far too much talking and not enough painting because it's all changing. I'll just get another piece of paper. Just pull through, wipe every time, every single time that you do, and I'll go for more yellow ochre again, yellow ochre and white. Every single time you pull through like that, you've got to clean the knife, otherwise it'll just smudge and get a whole lot of dirt. So now there's a lot more yellow ochre going on, so I'm going to put that in. Yellow ochre is a fantastic colour in this sort of, well, it kind of looks yellow ochre from what you're seeing as well, but from what I'm seeing there's also a lot of yellow ochre, so let's get that in. Now I'm just fluffing around a lot here and talking a lot, as you can see. Sooner or later I've actually got to start thinking about what I'm doing. But for now, let's get that golden colour in. And that beautiful golden light, half mixed with the blues, half mixed with the burnt siennas. And then what I might do is actually go to a bigger knife, because as you know I love the big knives, and these big knives are great for doing those big smears like that. Wipe it off. Big smears, big smears. Just wipe through the painting. Clean the knife every single time. Wipe through. Wipe through. I'm going to pull down this time just to establish the edge of the hill. Pull down and get rid of that undertone that I did before from down below, because I went over the edges. We don't want to go over the edges. Okay, now I'll just stand back and have a look. Right. Going to throw a bit more cobalt blue and yellow ochre, a bit more white. Because I've been fluffing around too much and talking too much basically, and time is a wasting. Time is a wasting. Clean it, rub. Clean the knife every single time. It's got to be absolutely clean. Get a bit of yellow ochre. Pump that little baby in there. And rub. Now, let's have another look. Okay, time to put some of that pale blue in the foreground, a bit of magenta, a bit of that blue. I've got to get that water established now because, as you can see, that water's there, and let's get it in. Now I've got a slightly darker tone. I've put a bit of magenta and also a bit of blue and viridian green, and I'm going with downward strokes as that imitates reflections. Now I've got tape around the edges. I'll peel that tape off later. Alright, so I've got that in. Now it's time to just basically get a few of the shadows in the distance on that hill. That hill is looking good, but the shadows are slightly darker than what I've done already. So, there you go, look at that. Just pick out the, I love this knife, the big knife. Just pick out the edge of the hill with the knife. A little bit more green in that. Viridian green, bit more magenta, just to drop it down a tone or two. Yeah, that's good. Now you can go crazy, you can add too much, and that's a good thing. Just imitate the trees on the hill. That's a good thing. Because what's going to happen, I'll just lighten this tape here. What's going to happen is, let's put that there first. As the sun sets, you're going to get more of those shadow colours in. So you put them in first, and then you put your light on top of the dark. It's always easier to put light on dark rather than dark on light. So you can get carried away putting too much of that in, that's fine. Get the edges established, get the draftsmanship established, with the knife that is. A few pale colours here. Just get another, put this in the bin. Just clean that off by pulling down with a clean knife. I just want to wiping it every single time and just pulling down and cleaning, just smearing, blending. Okay, now I've got all the cool tones in. Obviously you're seeing a hell of a lot more warm tones than I'm painting here. But what I've done is I've put all the lights and put all the cool tones in. So now it's time to start cutting loose with all those beautiful colours. So I just move the paint away. Just scrape it off, put it to the side. I may use some of that paint later on, I may not. Thank you very much. But what I will do is keep it there just in case I need it. That wind's starting to come up now. Alright, so obviously, whoa, as you can see, that camera's on a bit of a dodgy system there, but right, we've got a bit of a shake going on. So alright, so here we go. Cat orange, a beautiful colour. Yeah, cat orange with a bit of white, not too much white. Let's have a look what we've got here. What do we got? Cat orange and a bit of white. Okay, so we'll just lightly pull it, and these beautiful highlight colours, just lightly scrape them, don't get too carried away. That way, if you leave the darks coming through, you get that beautiful impression of light and shadow. If you cover the whole thing, well, what's the point in that? So you get the feeling of light and shadow rather than just light and rather than just shadow. Now it's gone a bit dark because what's happening is the undertone is mixing with the orange, and that's where the palette knife comes in handy, where you can just lay the paint on over that undertone. If you get a brush and you try and put the paint on over that, it's not going to work. It'll just smear with oil paint, that is. So, but with this, I can lightly touch and stick it on like that. It'll still try and come through. It doesn't give up without a fight, but is a much better way to do it. That's why you don't move around too much and overmix, because if you overmix it, you'll actually kill the colours, because what I'm working with here is basically orange and blue. The sunset is orange, the shadows are blue. You start moving them around, they're on the opposite side of the colour wheel, and orange and blue will make mud. So you've got to try and keep them separate to each other. How do you do that? Just by lightly touching and applying once, and only once. Don't get too carried away with all your flash movements and all your flash did you. Don't do that. Just like apply the paint. Just put it on like that. Now that water's really gone into shadow now. The best part is the hill's starting to glow, so I'm going to get a little bit of magenta and a bit of white. Just mix up a very light tone of magenta and white. Maybe a tad lighter than that with a bit more white. Then, with a clean knife, I'm going to get stuck into this orange again and white, making a light tone with cad orange and white. And now I'm going to dip into that magenta and just half mix it. With that half mix, let's have a look what we got. I just lightly apply it. So that is too dark. But the theory was there, the intent was there. So what I'm going to do is just lighten that magenta a bit. So we've got a much more lighter tone of that version. Half mix again. Now, this time, that's good, but we need a bit more magenta than that. Because in the distance, I just very lightly touch, a bit more white. Very lightly touch, so you can get the illusion of trees and scrape marks and whatever else. What you got to realise, in the distance it's keyed down compared to the foreground, so it's always going to be a keyed down version of what you're seeing down here. So, right. Saying that, let's see what we've got. What was that? What was that? I think the camera over there just died. Oh well. Hear that? The old GoPro just ran out of power. Bugger. Oh well. Didn't charge it enough. Don't worry. Next time I'll know to charge it a little bit more. Apply the paint. Right, let's have a look. Okay, now I'll just put a bit of foliage. In some of the trees in the foreground. So I'm just going for some yellow ochre, a bit of blues and greens and whatever you want to do. Throw a bit of orange in because it's a sunset colour. Bit more yellow ochre. Just very lightly touch here. I've already got the shadows in, so now a bit more orange in that one. Now I just lightly touch. We just want to pull in the light source that's going on here. There is a fair amount of light source going on at the moment, as you can imagine, at sundown. What I will do is get this little knife again, mix up a very pale green, just using viridian green and white, mix it up pale, very pale, get a bit more white, and with that, half mix it with all these other colours. That gives you this beautiful, well, it should in theory, give you these colours that you want, really light tones, just bung a few of them in. Yeah, nice. Just put a few salt bushes here. I've already got the shadows in. As I said, you put the shadows in first and you add the light. Throw a few of those shadow tones in. Good. Good. Now, there's a little bit more of this, a bit more magenta up here. Half mix, slide, stand back and have a look. What I'm going to do before I go any further is just get rid of the tape. The tape was just to basically have neat edges and whatever. So I'll get rid of that, and then I'll finalise the composition. As I've said before, heck, that wind's come up. As I've said before, the composition always looks different once you peel that tape off. Back in the bin. Alright, so now I've got to work on that foreground, get that water looking better. Okay, let's have a look. Alright, so there's a few, what do you got here? There's a few beautiful subtle colours like this coming in. Just pull down for reflections like that, like so, that. That gives you the reflective quality. By pulling down with the knife. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just drop that water. I like to tape it off to do, you know, just to play and muck around. But what I'm going to do is drop that foreground water out of the picture plane. So I'll just mix up a bit of a colour here with all sorts of things. A bit of blue, a bit of purple, a bit of burnt sienna, a bit of yellow ochre, a bit of alizarin crimson. Just basically a neutral colour. Half mix it to get a nice kind of accent. Let's see what you can see there. It's kind of a keyed down colour. It's not too full on. That camera's just blowing in the wind. That's amazing. All right. Let's have a look. What do we got? Now I'm going to purposely drop it down. Just going to drop it. More blue than that, a bit more white, and that's good. And drop it down a little bit lower than what we've already had, just so we can have all the fun and games of what's going on. Now get rid of that one, get the big knife. As I said before, with this water, it's all about, once you've got that established, just pull through with a clean knife. Very clean knife, absolutely clean, perfectly clean, like that. That was a better example. The other one's a bit messy, so here we go again. Clean, clean, clean. Got to keep telling myself the same thing, as well as I'm telling you, like that. Okay, a bit of magenta, a bit of pale blue, a bit of orange, just make up a beautiful orangey, magenta-y, pale bluey colour, and just put some of those tones of the shadowy, basically the shadow of the bank. You've got obviously the light in the water, the bank is kind of giving off a nice light tone, so just put a bit of that in. Bit of a pale colour coming through here, just keep extending that a bit more. Let's have a look. Okay, now with this knife, bit of blue, bit of white, make a really light tone, bit of magenta. Just clarify that edge, a really light tone, go upside down with the palette knife. That wind is blowing, so hopefully I can get it in. Hopefully I can get it in because the wind's blowing and blooming everything everywhere. There's always wind. Something the tourist brochures never tell you is about the wind or the fly, so you get that as well, so don't forget that. Pull a couple of diagonals like that. Horizontals, I mean. Now I'm going to go for a bit of burnt sienna and a bit more cat orange, because I just want to make that bank, as the sun's setting, before that used to be quite a dark colour, but now it's quite a pale colour. So as the shadows have gotten bigger, it's paler. So I just want to make it ever so slightly paler. Up here also, upside down palette knife, pulling upwards rather than going downwards. Try again. Pulling upwards and rather than going downwards. Just establishing the edges. Bang. Okay, now the fun part starts. We've basically got it all in. Now we get to play with the last little tweaking thing. So I can see the light and shadows really kicking in now on the distant hill. So there's some beautiful marks coming on, like it's the evening shadows just kicking in. Just little marks here and there, you know. Go a little bit paler than that. What do we got? A bit more white. Pale it off. Very lightly touch. Heck, that wind has really come in all of a sudden. Like that's what you call an afternoon breeze, I guess. Can you see the camera shaking? Because I haven't got it properly established on a... I basically banged a peg into the ground and tack the camera onto it, but what I should have done is obviously had a proper setup, but I haven't. Okay, let's keep going. Right, so just start putting shadows in where they look good. Not like a shadow. I might like a shadow this way. Oh, no, that's not a proper shadow. That's white rather than blue. Get rid of that white. Right, so you can go for some beautiful light tones, mixing up some of those really light tones. Nice light tones. Alright, so let's go. What I'll do is I'll clean the knife. It's a bit muddy. For these particular tones, when you're working with the last little touch-ups, you need very clean colours, because what's basically going on is all the other stuff is the undertones, and as soon as you get to the last bit, you've got the accents. So you've got to go really clean. You've got to work with clean colours. You can't mix, you know, a muddy palette basically. So I've gotten rid of all that, and I'm going to go back again into this same thing, but use a cleaner version of it, because there's no point using an old heck, that wind's come up. I hope you can hear me. There's no point using an old muddy colour, you know, basically. So half mix that with that. Right, let's have a look. Accent time, accent time. What colour we got here? Okay. Go a little bit more orange and white. Half mix it. I like the half mix. Just pop it in. Pop. A few shadows. Bit of white, bit of yellow for an extra highlight. Pull it through. Don't be afraid to just like pull through like so. Sometimes you've got to have really confident. If you've got too many tentative marks, sometimes you've got to have really confident marks. So Don't be afraid to like really pull through. I might just stand back and have a look first before I get carried away. Right, there's a clean knife. Just half pull through. So what you got is, that way you get basically you get a slide technique where you've got all the colours in already, but sometimes they're a bit fiddly. So what you want to do as a minimalist plein air painter, you want to minimalise what's going on. So you pull it through just to simplify the whole thing. Like just get some simple marks going on rather than fiddly. Getting there, it's getting there. Okay, I'll have a look. I'm going to put that mark there because that was, I lost a bit of that edge. I purposely want to stick that there. At the same time, I'll just, before I have a look, let's have a look. A clean upward marks just to clean things off. Softening. Let's have a look what we've got here. What have we got? So downward reflection there. Okay, so now just quickly grab this knife, a bit more yellow ochre, a bit more white, just pre-mixing what I did earlier, just getting a little bit of the earlier colours. Just mix her up before the sun goes, because I've been talking so much in this video, I forgot to actually paint too much. So there's a real lot of beautiful golden, wipe the knife clean. Beautiful golden light coming down from the sky. So don't forget to put that in and reinforce it later on. The original impression that you found, what you thought you were going to like about the subject at the start, you've got to make sure at the very end you put the same thing in. So the original impression was, I love the fact that I knew that hill was going to glow, and I love the fact that I also knew that I was going to get a sky jutting up like so, not quite like that, pull that one down. I love the fact that I knew that I was going to get certain concepts, and so what you do is at the ends of the painting, you reinforce the original concept. What was the concept that you were going to paint before you started? Now make sure you got that in your painting. That is getting beautiful out there now. It's getting magentas and everything. Let's have another look. I might just pull through with a clean knife and wipe, just to get rid of the fiddly farty, because I don't want that. I want it to be pure and simple image. I want it to be contrasting, I want it to be dramatic, just like what I'm saying. And that's the thing. You have to capture the power of nature, the power of nature. Alright, so that's pretty much it. We've pretty much done what we wanted to do here. I'll just mix up a nice clean little bit of blue here. Just to definitely accent the edges here. What have we got? accent the edges and portray the reflections. I'll have another look. Alright, well that'll do. What I'll do is get the camera off because the sun is just about to go. Let's do this. Alright, well I just captured the last bit of light looking at that mountain. Now look at that beautiful colour. Now you can see on the horizon how I was talking about a bit of burnt sienna, and there it is. And in here we've got that beautiful reflective quality of that body of water. Very subtle colours. Now what has happened is it's already changed compared to what I was painting, because that last couple of seconds of light is always different again. But basically what you do is, because you're there for half an hour to an hour, you pick up all the bits that you like in the landscape and you add them into your picture. Now let's have a close-up at the picture. Okay, now you can see I've worked with a lot of bright colours, and I've got those magentas I was talking about in the mountains and a bit of the burnt siennas on the horizons that I added in at the start. As it goes up higher it gets into those deeper blues, and there's the light source that I put on the trees. Now if you come down into here you'll see some of these crazy complementary colours, how I've really mixed orange and blue next to each other. And as I said before, laying them on top of each other without smearing too much, otherwise you'll mix mud. But we've got the reflections and we've got all the works and jerks there. So as you can see, it's basically done. Okay, now if you like the video, remember to go ahead and like the video. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do that. And also don't forget to press the notification bell. That way you'll be alerted of all the videos as I upload them. Alright, well thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.